Woohoo, guys. A long-awaited package, I think, for parts for Orangey. Glasses so I can read. They're covered in aluminum foil. Isn't that interesting? I guess that's to stop anything, possibly magnetic particles getting onto the magnet. Neck. Let's see what it's neck. Let's see one. Ah, right around. Pretty cool. I think these are the ones that don't have screws, but they have Allen keys on them. Probably looks similar to the pickups I put on, or came on, the pick guard for. Oh no. They're just slugs. No adjustments. Four wire. But here's the thing. In thinking about all this time while I didn't have anything, what I could do with this guitar, HSH, I came up with two optional schematics. One that could be on Orangey and one that could be on the next guitar. So what I have here basically is two options. This is option 1. Option 1 has two volumes, independent, with push-pull switches on them, and adding a third one, or maybe not, for the tone. That would make it a 3-pot on the top instead of the 2-pot that it is now. I would have to drill an extra hole. In addition to the standard 5-way switching that you get, for the push-push pots, I'm hoping to be able to, oh, I need some M8 nuts. When it's down, it would be in humbucker mode. When they're up, they're in split coil mode. And you get the 5 standard 5-way switches. And also adding the Gilmore switch to be able to put the bridge and neck together, either in both humbucker or split coil on either side, depending on how those switches are positioned. Hey guys, we're into this next segment, and I've been able to remove all of the components, including in the cavity. These wires, except for that grounding for the bridge, probably this is going to be changed. I don't like these wires going to that jack anyway. But yeah, so I'm at the point where I thought this would be a great idea that when I mount the pickups, whoops, lost the screw. When I mount the pickups this time, instead of, you know, having them sit on these stupid spongy things with screw holes, I want it to cover the area with trim rings. And so, like on my Telecasters, I put, you know, chrome trim rings around that so that the body looks pretty nice, and you don't see gaping holes around your pickups. Well, when I tested this one, where the screw hole would go would be right here, and there's basically no meat right there on the inside of this cavity to accept that screw, and the other one has a little bit more meat. So what I decided to do was to create a tiny little block that would and I figured out it was a 3/4 inch radius that would go in there and just kind of give me the area that I'd need to drill, and it wouldn't come apart on me. I'm hoping this will do. They have to be that small because trying to get the pickup in this cavity, these wings on the outside here, they're quite wide. I mean, they're, oops, I'm having trouble with my hands today. They go right across the bottom of the cavity. So I had to make them small, and I had to make them not too tall. See, I'm having trouble holding on to things. Arthritis today is bothering me. It had to be very, very small, so that if I could get them at the top, I'm going to try to be able to put the pickup like underneath, and then try to get it down past this one, and then be able to put it in there with the springs and everything mounted to the trim ring, and then be able to screw it in. It's a hope. Let's see if I can make it work. I have chrome trim rings for that as well, and so far I don't perceive that there's any problem being able to drill the 4 holes for the humbuckers. But I need to remove paint from inside the cavity here. All of the cavity is painted, so I'm going to get my Dremel out. Oh yeah, that's the jack. I'm going to get my Dremel out, and I'm going to just shave that off on the inside there a tiny little bit, take the paint off. So when I put the wood glue in there, and then I'm going to put a little clamp on it like that and hold it in place so that it has a nice tight seat, and hopefully that's going to give me what I need. And I want to do that as the first thing before I start doing anything else with the body. I want to make sure that that's done, so that I can get the pickups put in the area, get the wires running to the cavity, and then start doing all of the things I need with the new switches and pots and things like that. I've already pulled out some of those spongy things. So here's the story. 3/4 inch dowel. I was looking at the hardware store for this, and they I didn't have it in 3-footer. They sell them in 3-footers and 6-footers. I had to buy a 6-footer of this at $8 to be able to get, fingers guys, to be able to get this tiny little piece. Literally, this is is it a 1/4 inch? It's 1/4 inch by about 1/8 inch in the center, 3/16. For 2 pieces like that. So I just ran it on my blade runner down each side like that, and then I just shaved it off, and I got my 2 little plugs that I want to do. So I'm going to do that, and it's going to be noisy and boring, and I'm going to have to put earplugs in, so you'll have to just wait a second, and then it'll go. Alright, that will be an overnighter. Since this bridge is also sunk in, I'm going to have to make some adjustment, and I think I'm going to put some kind of a cork pad or felt pad or something underneath this edge of the bridge to bring it up properly, so it will work a little bit better and give me some straightness so that I can have some usefulness, because right now these saddles, they're they're pronged straight up, and in order to be able to get over the top and up over the neck, and I think I have to prop that up a little bit as well. I wanted to show you something right here. You can see that little channel. I had to drill on both sides for the humbuckers because the screws are excessively long for the depth of the routing. They didn't have to contend with this because they had screwed them directly on the body and they needed that routing a little bit higher. So since I'm doing this, I didn't want to cut the screws, so I just took a 1/8 inch spade bit and just put a little channel in there so that the screw will go down inside the hole, and then that allows it to sit flush. I got a good tight fit here on this one. Also, because with the trim ring installed here, the way the neck fits in the pocket, it was butting up just a little too much against the trim ring area. That's probably up a little bit too far as it is anyway right now. It's a nice tight fit pocket. It's very, very good, very well cut. So to get it kind of like just flush right in here, I had to do some shaving about a 1/16 of an inch on the bottom of the heel, just to be able to stop it from pushing on the trim ring, which was then forcing the body of the humbucker to butt up against the side of the cavity, and it was impeding. First of all, it was making it lean a little bit, and then it was impeding, you know, it being able to flow up and down on the springs more fluidly. So that's the off-camera stuff I did. Oh, and as well, down here, I cut some little clear rubber bumpers and glued them inside this indentation here to be able to have my bridge sit up higher, more flush with the surface, and giving me a little bit more control, I think, of the saddles. If that's not the case, I will cut those things off. I also used some plumber's tape to tighten up these posts. This is what the extra X key was for in the bag that I didn't know what it was going to work on because it was an odd size. It's for those. Before I can do anything else, I need to make sure all of the mechanical stuff will be working properly before I start any of the electrical stuff. I also had to drill out the holes because, again, the screws were biting into the body too much, and I didn't like that. I wanted to go through a little bit more clearly, easily, and so when it gets into the neck, it bites. Okay guys, I'm back. It's a new day, and look, I've been able to get this installed like it should go. Took some work, but I did it. Those little shims that I made, really close here to the edge, you see. So I build that up, and I'm going to impregnate the edge of it with crazy glue. I did already before I did the sanding down. I put one on the other side, then I realized I didn't really need it that much, so I kind of like sanded it all the way back. Just left a tiny little bit of it in there, just in case. And what I'm going to do is impregnate the rest of that with crazy glue in order to give it more strength. so that you know, it won't push it out. Kind of like rebarring concrete. I'm gonna go off camera, do a pile of stuff, and I'll be back. I feel way more comfortable with springs on my pickups than those foam pads they had underneath the bottom here. So I've got the two wires installed like that, and this is the pocket where you got to watch out for obstruction between these wires and the, oops, got to twist these together, and the rest of them for the adjustment. Okay, here we go. Like that. So, starting to look, huh? I'm gonna put the screw holes in for that, and then I'll be back. I already see obstruction. I'm gonna have to work on it. Time to start the wiring, and the first part of it will be to provision my switch with the one jumper that goes between the two commons, and set those up. Set up the tone pot, and then the harder part will be to work inside the cavity to wire the stuff up. It's a little bit more difficult to work inside a cavity than doing it on the back of a flat pick guard. So you got to watch the burning of the fingers and burning of the wire insulation very closely. So on my schematic that I have, this switch 1 is going to be part of the tone pot. So when I push that out, it will make this connection so I don't have to put a separate toggle switch anywhere. That's the one change I've made, and I hope the rest of it works as described. So off I go. There is the tight working area. So I'm ready to dive into the cavity and get her going. Okay guys, I think I've gotten all of this stuff in. I just need to go do a double check to make sure it's all okay. This one is in. It's going to be called S3 now. Yeah, so I went with the dual volume controls and tone control on the Zuwei, and I put the other circuit aside. Turns out the pot for the neck is going to be 570K. The bridge measures out at 562, and the tone measures out at 488. And I'm putting a 33 mic in there. So this is what the cavity looks like now. I put a piece of 14 gauge ground wire across all three pots to common ground them all. since there's no other grounding available. It's as neat as I could make it. It took me quite some time now. I'd say I'd been working on it for about 2.5, almost 3 hours, being as meticulous as I can. These wires that are hanging up here, they're for testing the Fralin resistor that I might want to put in this part of the circuit here. I'm going to do some checking with that once I get it strung up and see what the split will do. I'll try it without the resistor, then I'll try it with values of resistors until I find something that I think is appropriate for my liking. So yeah, I got to move to the other bench, plug it up and see if I can get some tone, a clunk clunk out of each one of these things in each one of the positions of the neck, and I'll be back to report. Bad news, I've got a direct short across the output somewhere and I have to chase it down. I found it. The braided wire where the ground is, and when the jack is in place, is touching the tip. I'm going to have to unsolder this and put a sleeve over it. After I solved the jack problem, I still couldn't get any neck in the neck. But when I was down here, I could get neck with the bridge even when the switch wasn't pushed up. And I did it to myself, and it happened here when I was doing the position checker. Up here I had neck, down here as B3, and for some reason down here I had them reversed. I ended up with neck on B1 and B2, and then I'm going, okay, what's going on? So I ended up screwing it up. I drew my circuit with the neck on B2, and it really should be on B3. I should say B4. B2, 3, and 4. So not there. There. I have to fix that. Now it works. All positions work fine. I checked the grounding with the Fralin wires, and they're splitting fine. And now it's just a matter of putting the bridge back on, putting the neck back on, getting some strings on it, and starting from there. We've reached the point where it's together, and it's looking really good now. It took me pretty much off and on all day yesterday to be able to get the adjustments right for the neck versus where the bridge had to be. Ouch, that picked me. If you recall in the earlier video, these pickups were sunken into the body where they were connected with the screws into the wood. Now with these trim rings, they're raised up a bit, and so that means that I had to get the neck up a little, and I had to move the bridge up so that now it's not sunken into this cavity that's in there. It's flush with the back. And so getting the adjustment of these posts versus the availability of saddle adjustment height and the neck was tedious, to say the least. I had to get a shim put in the neck. I had to play with a few different ones. I ended up with a 0.31 millimeter that got it exactly where I needed it, so I could get the action right there that I'm looking for. And I ended up with here on the 20th fret, there's a high spot in the middle. Either I missed that when I was working on it, or it came up since a month ago when I was working on the neck. I tried to tap it. It will not go down. So again, as long as I stay up here away from there at the 19th fret for a while, I'll be okay until the string change, and then I'll fix that one up. So I just wanted to show you this close-up of, you know, how she's going to look. Oh, I also had to change the string trees. The barrel ones that I had put on initially when working on the neck were not working well in this position for the heavier gauge strings up here. The width of the channel on the barrel ones were not wide enough and were actually hanging up. The tuners are sloppy. Also will be changed at the string change. These are my last set of 995s on this guitar. So I've got the treble bleeds in there. I ended up choosing a 1K resistor for the coil splits, the Fralin resistors. That's what gave me the change in tonality, but not as much of a change in volumes, and I will show you that next. We will select the basic 65 Deluxe as before. Okay, so back to the humbucker. Everything's full up, and the amp is still on 2.5, and it's really quiet. There's no noise cancelling or anything going on with it. Let's put it in the middle position. In the middle position, it's actually a little quieter than it is in the humbucker position. That's very quiet. I hear a tiny little bit of white noise coming from the speaker in this position. Okay, so here we go. Yes, these FLOER humbuckers are not terrible. They're not the greatest either. I do not like the tonality of them as much as I do for the Wilkinsons that I put in Donna down here, but they're pretty good. They have their own voicing, which is nice to have differences, which is why I do these things between the guitars. So I'll find uses for this. Something will come up. Okay, those two. The drop is not as dramatic as it was before. This single is from the Oscar Schmidt middle. It's an 8.62K. I had it, so I used it. The middle alone, no volume control. Now, in reality, that's the best sound from a middle pickup that I've had. Maybe as good or a tad better than even my original Fender Strat pickups that came on my American, until I changed them to Texas pickups. Oh, missed one. Now these two. In humbucker and middle. The warmness gets a little bit like it was here before. So single alone by itself is brighter. And that's because the humbucker is a warmer tone up here. Okay, so let's split this one while we're here. So it goes down about half, or maybe just a tad over half with the Fralin resistor in there. So we keep it split. Back to these two. So that's a little bit brighter than in tonality with the singles together. We already know that's the single there. Let's go to this position and we will split the bridge. So it takes some of the bottom end off up here when it's split. Makes it a little bit sharper, a little bit brighter through the mids and the highs. And again, full volume. And then humbucker split. So again, probably just a tad under a half that way. So in this position, if I push the S1 here, now these two will be on. And you can adjust, now it's just this single. Or that single. So when it's full up, it brings you right to the full output and it gets a little bit brighter right up, and then you can adjust the warmness you know, between the two, what you want, and they're in parallel. And the same as if, you know, one is in and one is out. Now you get full humbucker and a half. Hear that? When you roll it up, you get the full humbucker, I should say the full humbucker here and a half a humbucker there. Adds warmness so you can blend it. And that's one of the reasons why I like blending. I can get tonality from the pickups without actually having to use the tone control and cutting off a lot of frequencies that I don't really like. Even with, and remember, I've got treble bleed on both of these volume controls. And then both of them together in bridge and neck. Bridge alone. And that happens either in the 1 position or the 5 position. And that's what the mods do. So it's finished except for the covers. I was not able to turn that around. And I'm really happy with the results. And that will conclude the major mods on this guitar, which I haven't thought of a name. Thank you very much for following me on this adventure. The next one's coming up. Of course, in line is the Ibanez. Not sure what I'm going to do with that yet, but stay tuned for that.